I guess. All right. Hare Krishna all, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice having all of you, especially Jai Jagannath Prabhu, on this most auspicious day of Gaura Purnima. For Jai Jagannath Prabhu is well known here in Chicagoland. And for those of you here in the western suburbs who are not so very familiar, just wanted to say that Jai Jagannath Prabhu was born and brought up in Chicago. I used to know his mother so well in 30 years back. She used to come to the temple in ISKCON, Chicago, and we were good friends. And Jai Jagannath Prabhu was very young at that time, and he as well as his brother also. He's now a full-time devotee living here in Chicagoland. While he was in Chicago, one thing very, very special about him was, he was in the Brahmachari ashram and he was immersed in the study of scriptures. And when I said immersed, really, it was not just superficial reading or anything like that. He used to spend hours and hours and hours studying Vaishnava scriptures, Srila Prabhupada's books, and always imparting knowledge to the devotees. So his deep interest was always in the study of scriptures and distributing that knowledge to the devotees. While he was here, he developed a wonderful training program for the brahmacharis, which was highly successful and deeply appreciated by everyone. And then he moved on to Bhakti Center in New York. There also, as far as I understand, that he was also involved in creating and teaching Bhakti scriptures, many educational courses. And wherever he goes, that is his special interest, studying and teaching the Vedic scriptures. And that is unique he is so unique in the sense about his genuine, deep interest in the study of scriptures and imparting that knowledge to others. And I'm so very happy to have him here today and wanted to welcome him request him to speak. And just before he mentioned that he's going to speak about the internal and external reasons of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. Welcome, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you for that introduction. And thank you all for blessing me by lending me your ears. For how long? How long does the class normally go on for?
I mean, usually it is a short class, about 30 minutes and 15 minutes or so for discussion, but you can take more time. Lingaraja Prabhu, that is fine, right? 45 minutes. 45
Sunday Mataji, 1 hour class.
Today's 1 hour class, yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for lending your ears for possibly up to 1 hour. We have heard from Vaishnava Acharyas that he who engages us in Harikatha is our guardian angel, because only by doing Hari Kirtan, discussing Krishna conscious topics, are you protected from the victimization of the material energy. So anyone who is kind enough to lend their ears is a guardian angel. And so I thank you. I see there are several guardian angels here today to protect me. So I'm very grateful to all of you for being my protectors in that way. I will begin with a little bit of Mangalacharna so that I can remove the obstacles to my feeble attempt to present the subject matter, which is highly exalted and really, frankly speaking, beyond my pay grade, as we say in the States. But in any case, when a child speaks philosophy, it can be cute. So in this way, I hope you find the presentation at least adorable, but I will offer this to Mangalcharan to help create some auspiciousness and also remove the obstacles to the presentation. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Om Ajnana Timirandasya Ganajana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Anarpita Charim Chirak Karunaya Vatirna Kalo Samarpayitumu Natadjwala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purita Sundara Dutikadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaya Kandare Spurutava Sachinandana Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikrite Hladini Shakti Rasmat Ekatmana Vapi Bhuvipura Deha Bhedam Katautam Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Aduna Tatvayam Chakyamaptam Radha Bhava Duti Subalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrishovanayaiva Swadyo Yena Bhutamadurima Kidrishovha Madhiya Sokyam Chasya Madanubhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobhat Tabhavadya Samajani Shachi Garbha Sindhau Harindu Hari Om Tat Sat. Those last three verses I sang are to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, describing his internal and external reasons for his appearance. And that will be the subject matter this morning. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as far as Gaudiya Vaishnavas are concerned, is Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna. And when Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna makes his appearance, he has his reasons for appearing. As it is described in Bhagavad Gita in the Avatar doctrine section that appears in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapranataya sambhavami yuge yuge. So there it says that this is answering the question, why does the avatar appear? So in general, it is said that the avatar appears to deliver the virtuous and to annihilate the wicked and to reestablish the principles of dharma. This is the general reasons that are given in the Bhagavad Gita for the appearance of the avatar. But when the Lord Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna appears, he has his own personal reasons for appearing, as well as reasons by which he wants to benefit others. So this is called the Antaranga Vichar and Bahiranga Vichar, respectively. The Antaranga Vichar means the internal consideration for appearing, and the Bahiranga Vichar means the external consideration for appearing. External doesn't mean materialistic. External means for the benefit of others. So the external, these two, the Antaranga Vichar, Bahiranga Vichar, they are not mutually exclusive. I want to explain this just briefly. They are not mutually exclusive. So the Bahiranga Vichar, the external consideration for the Lord's appearance, involves the distribution of Krishna consciousness to the people of this world. And by Krishna consciousness, we mean not just like God consciousness in general, just like when Srila Prabhupada started his ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So the devotees thought inserting the word Krishna would make it too sectarian. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, you should call it as God consciousness. And he said, no, Krishna consciousness. So this phrase, Krishna consciousness, is actually very important. I could have given a class just on that, but no time for that right now. The word Krishna consciousness means the consciousness of Krishna. And what Krishna? Brajendra Nandana Krishna, the cow her boy, and Sri Vrindavan Dham. So the external consideration for appearing in this world, for Krishna appearing in this world, is the distribution of Krishna consciousness, which means the consciousness of Brajendra Nandana Krishna. And the state of this consciousness, or the state of this awareness, is known as Krishna Prema. That is the name of the state of awareness characterized by the consciousness of Krishna. It is called as Krishna Prema. So if you have to distribute Krishna Prema, then you should also have the subjective experience of Krishna Prema, right? Without the subjective experience of Krishna Prema, how will you distribute that awareness to others? If you do not have, $10 in your pocket, how can you give $10 to others? So the Antaranga Vichar, the internal consideration for the Lord appearing, involved accepting the subjective experience of Krishna consciousness. So this language is important because Krishna Prema means love, or the state of awareness characterized by Krishna consciousness is known as Krishna Prema, which means love of Krishna. And love has a subject and love also has an object, right? The subject of love is called as the Ashraya Vigraha, the subject, or you can call it the vessel of love, Adhara, the word vessel is sometimes also used. And the object of love is called as Vishaya Vigraha. So in any loving relationship, there's a person at whom the love is directed, and then there's a person in whom the love is residing, right? So the person in whom love exists is called the subject of love. And the person at whom love is directed is called the object of love. So in Krishna, so the object of Krishna Prema is Sri Krishna. He is the object of Prema. So Sri Krishna has the objective experience of Krishna Prema. And the persons in whom that Krishna Prema resides is called the subject of love. So Krishna wants to distribute Krishna Prema, the experience of what it means to love God on a subjective level. Because Krishna is the object of love, he can't exactly distribute, so to speak. Of course, nothing is beyond God's ability, but this is in his own consideration as presented by Kaviraj Goswami. As the object of love, in some ways, he doesn't have access to the subjective experience of what it means to love him. And so he wants to distribute that loving experience to the world. That's part of the external consideration. And so he has to accept the subjective position of Krishna Prema. That means he has to become the devotee and experience that love subjectively, right? So without accepting that subjective experience, how will he distribute it to others? So his internal consideration is related to the embracing of the subjective experience of Krishna Prema. Only by the embrace and embodiment of that experience can then one be empowered to distribute that awareness to others. So anyway, the point of this little explanation I've just given is to say that his internal and external considerations are not mutually exclusive. They're actually deeply aligned. And yet there is that distinction there made by Kaviraj Goswami. At least he's giving that revelation for us. So we will do a little gloss of the external reasons for Krishna's appearance and then spend a little bit more focus on the internal reasons, because the language surrounding the internal reasons for Krishna's appearance is not always super clear. So I thought I would spend a little bit more time on that this year. I normally spend most of my time describing the external considerations. This year, we're going to get a little bit more into the internal considerations, which is a highly esoteric subject matter. It's elaborated upon in the 4th chapter of the Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila. And we will not be presenting a very in-depth presentation of that because it's a lot and super esoteric. And like I said, beyond my pay grade, but just to give you a sense of the subject matter at hand and why the devotees glorify Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially on this day. Yeah, all days, every day, but we're especially remembering him this day. So let's get a little bit here into the external consideration. So as I mentioned, the external consideration involves the distribution of the awareness of Brajendra Krishna to the people of this world. So the subjective experience of Krishna Prema has 4 types are of four types, and they're embodied in four types of devotees. The four types of subjective experiences of Krishna Prema are known as Dasya Rati, which means the love as a servant, Sakya Rati, which means the love as a friend, the Vatsalya Rati, which means the love as a parent having love for a child, and the Madhura Rati, the love of a lover for the beloved. These are the four types of Krishna Prema, and they have their four types of vessels, called as the servants, the cowherd friends, the elder cowherd people, and the cowherd girls, or the gopis of Braj. So these are the four Ashraya Vigrahas, or vessels of these four types of love. So when Krishna comes to perform his leelas in the material world, Kaviraj Goswami informs us that Krishna has two reasons, personal reasons for coming. Sri Krishna, not Krishna coming as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Sri Krishna himself, when he performs his leelas in the Dwapara Yuga, he has two purposes for which he appears, actually. So purpose number one is that he wants to taste Krishna consciousness. Prema rasa niryasa karite aswadana. He wants to taste the prema rasa of these four types of devotees. To taste means to experience, basically, in this context. He wants to get experience of what it's like to. He wants to get an experience of these different types of love for him. And after experiencing that, he has a desire to also distribute that to the people of this world. And there's a certain process of devotion to Krishna that can give rise to that sort of experience. And that is known as Raganuga Bhakti. So Prema Rasa Niryasa Karite Aswadana Rag Marg Bhakti Loke Karite Pracharan. So he wants to taste this Prema Rasa of the Brijbasis, and then he wants to distribute Rag Marg Bhakti, which means the path. Marga means the path of Raganuga Bhakti, to the people of this world, because only by that path can one gain access to the subjective experience known as Krishna Prema. The absolute truth is variegated, and according to the path that one accepts for understanding that absolute reality, then that's the thing that they realize, right? Vedanti tatavidas tattam yajgana madhvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. There's a famous verse, one of the main verses on which our whole theology is based, that the absolute reality is known by knowers of the truth as non-dual consciousness, and it's experienced as Brahman by those who follow the path of Jnana. It's experienced as Paramatma by those who follow the path of Yoga, and it's experienced as Bhagavan by those who follow the path of Bhakti. Now, within Bhakti path, there are divisions, and one division is Raganuga Bhakti. And by that Bhakti, one gets access to the vision or self-manifestation of Swayam Bhagavan Krishna in Braja. So Krishna wants to distribute that, Kaviraj Goswami tells us. So after he performs his leelas as Krishna in this world for that particular purpose. But after wrapping up his leelas as Krishna, he feels disappointed with his work. He, of course, has tasted, the different types of Krishna consciousness while he was in this world nicely, but he felt that his work of distribution was not very good. Therefore, you'll find in this Chaitanya Charitamrita also, in the beginning of the chapter 7 of Adi Lila, there's this whole description of how the storehouse of love of God came with Krishna. But during Krishna's Lila, it was locked, and therefore the fruits that were inside were not able to be nicely distributed. So Krishna was quite disappointed by his work of distribution. And in his own relaying of his disappointment, Kaviraj Goswami's, I should say, relaying of Krishna's disappointment in his work of distribution, he concludes that without the experience of Krishna Prema, there is no point to the entire material existence. Like if people don't have access to this opportunity, at least, then what was actually the point of existence itself? It's a question that people are always bewildered about. Karpanya dosha uparata swabhava prachami tvam dharma samudacheta. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is bewildered about his existence. And I think that's something anyone can relate to this, especially during lockdowns and all that. People are losing jobs. They're losing their social positions. They're even losing their relationships as people are spending way too much time together and they can't stand each other, I guess. People are losing a lot. And when you lose so much in this world, you can enter into an existential crisis. And one comes to wonder, what is the purpose of existence? So Arjuna also has this existential dilemma. Karpanya dosha uparata swabhava. My nature is afflicted by an existential problem. And then he also says, I'm also confused about what I should be doing. Dharma samudacheta. I mean, the two are not mutually exclusive. If you're confused about who you are, then you'll be confused about what you're supposed to do. Or say it in the converse, if you have clarity about who you are, then you can have clarity about what you should be doing in this world. So Yashreya Shan Nishchitam Bruhitame. So Arjuna said, Pratami Tom, I have a question for you. That you tell me decisively what is Shreyas. What decisively is Shreyas? So Shreyas means the highest good. It's interesting. Question. That is his actual question or request for an answer. Like, this is my dilemma. It's both an internal dilemma and an external one. The internal one being an existential one, the external one being an ethical one. And you tell me decisively what is Shreyas. Well, in the view of Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the answer to Shreyas is actually is Krishna consciousness. And again, Krishna consciousness means Krishna and Braja, distribution of that awareness. That is the actual answer to Shreyas. So Krishna felt that I didn't do a good job in distributing Shreyas to the people of this world, which was part of my purpose. You know, half of purpose was to taste Krishna consciousness, the other half was distributed. I didn't do a good job. And without this Krishna consciousness, there is no point to the material existence whatsoever. Therefore, I must come again. I myself must come again and Kali Yuga to distribute this awareness more effectively. So this is the very first external reason for Krishna appearing as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is the first reason. So there's three reasons, three external reasons and three internal reasons. So this is the first internal reason, that he actually wants to distribute Braja, Prema, Krishna consciousness to the people of this world. That's his external reason. So at the time of wanting to make his appearance, that coincided with the appearance of the Yuga Avatar who promotes the Yuga Dharma. As you know, that there are different categories of Avatara: Purusha Avatar, Guna Avatar, Manvantara Avatar, Lila Avatar, Shakti-Vesh Avatar, and then Yuga Avatar. So the Yuga Avatar means the avatars that appear in each one of the four yugas that happen in Bharatvarsha. So the Yuga Avatar descends to promote the Yuga Dharma, which means the Dharma for the particular age. So each age is uniquely characterized by a specific dharma that will allow for entities in that age to achieve the spiritual perfection. And the Yuga Avatar promotes that Yuga Dharma. So at the time Krishna was thinking about, it was disappointed about his distribution work, the time for the appearance of the Yuga Avatar who comes to promote the Yuga Dharma appeared. So Sri Krishna himself took the role of the Yuga Avatar and promoting the Yuga Dharma. And he said, I'm going to accomplish my purpose, which is the distribution of Krishna Prema, through the instrument of the Yuga Dharma. So sometimes, in other words, the work of the Yuga Avatar is actually Vishnu's work. Krishna doesn't appear every Kali Yuga to promote the Yuga Dharma. No. That work is done by Vishnu, because the avatar, generally speaking, is related to the maintenance of the universe. That's why the avatars come. That's why Krishna says, I think in Gita, I quoted at the beginning of the class, it's related to the maintenance of the universe, right? because Vishnu is concerned with maintenance of the cosmos while it's manifested. So the avatars usually are doing some work to help with that maintenance work. But Krishna doesn't care about maintenance work. It means he doesn't care directly. You can say he cares indirectly through his expansions as Paramatma, Vishnu. But he does not care directly about that. He has his own reasons he wants to accomplish. So that is to give this Krishna consciousness. So he takes the place of the Yuga Avatar and uses the Yuga Dharma, you can say, to promote the distribution of his purpose, which is Krishna Prema. So the second reason that is given by Kaviraj Goswami, second external reason, is to inaugurate the Yuga Dharma. But this Yuga Dharma is, Yuga Dharma means the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That is the Yuga Dharma for the age of Kali. So when Krishna distributes the holy name, it is very different from when other avatars of Vishnu distribute the holy name. When Vishnu distributes the holy name, which is normally his work as the Yuga Avatar and most of the other Yuga cycles, that holy name that is given by Vishnu does not lead to the awareness of Krishna consciousness or Krishna and Braja. It can give liberation. And there are 5 types of liberation. Impersonal one is there also. That's usually discounted in the society of Vaishnavas. But there's 4 types of personal Vaikuntha liberations. So when Vishnu distributes the holy name, he can get, that holy name is filled with the Shakti to give liberation. That Shakti is called as Taraka Shakti. Anyway, not going too much into that. But Taraka Shakti means the potency to give the liberation. But when Krishna distributes the holy name, he infuses it with what's called the Paraka Shakti. The word Paraka means competence, and it refers to the competence to give Krishna Prema. So, and especially in the 4th chapter, it is mentioned that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the holy name and then took this, you can say, Parak Shakti, which gives Prema, and he wove a wreath or a garland of the holy name, and he wove a wreath of the holy name and this Paraka Shakti. And then he created a garland out of this, and then he took that garland and he gave it to the people of this world. So this is the second external reason for Mahaprabhu's appearance, to take holy name and take the Paraka Shakti and make a garland, wove a wreath, make a garland, and give it to the people of this world. So that is why the holy name is the main instrument by which Krishna consciousness can be achieved. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Evamrata Swapriya Namakritya Jatanuraga Dutachitta Uchai. This last verse I'm just quoting, this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, chapter 2, verse number 40. And this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has told the sannyasis of Benares is the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said his guru taught him this verse and said it was the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And this verse is saying that one should be fixed in the vow to, wander the world in a detached spirit, singing the glories of one's Ishtadev without inhibition. This is the basic vrata of a devotee in this world. And then he says, being evam vrata, being thus fixed in this vow, swapriya namakirtya, specifically through the kirtan of the name that is most dear to you, specifically through that name, jata anurhaga, then you will develop the love of Krishna, and druta chitta uchai, which causes the heart to melt. So anyway, for this reason, this Nam Sankirtan is the main instrument by which Krishna consciousness can be achieved. Because Mahaprabhu or Krishna himself took the holy name, took the Parak Shakti, he made wove wreath, made garland, and he gave that to the world. This is the second external reason for Mahaprabhu's appearance. So first one was what? To distribute Krishna Prema, the subjective experience of love of God. The second reason was to, you can say, employ the Yuga Dharma, which is normally work done by the Yuga Avatar Vishnu. He took that Yuga Dharma and made it special so that his primary purpose for us could be achieved. Very nice. The third reason for his appearance, mentioned by Kaviraj Goswami, is that Advaita Acharya was saying the world was bereft of the awareness of Krishna. This is the general problem in the material world. The basic, the root tragedy of material existence is that we're oblivious of God. From that root tragedy, all the other tragic situations are coming. In fact, if you can, I'll say it in the reverse, if we have the awareness of Krishna, then nothing in this world will actually be tragic. As Queen Kunti is praying, Vipada Santuta Shashvat, Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru, Bhavato Darshanam Yasyara Punar Bhavadarshanam. She gives a long list of all the tragic things she experiences in life. And then she says, bring on the tragedy, no problem. Oh Lord of the universe, bring on one after another all these calamities, this tragedy, bring it, there is no problem, because Bhavato Darshanam Yasya, because we were seeing you. And Prabhupada saying, of course, for Kunti, seeing means actually, she was like actually seeing Krishna, which is, very nice. And in Prabhupada's purport, he says, he actually says remembrance. The jivas can get remembrance of you. And when that remembrance of Krishna, apunar bhava darshanam, they no longer have to experience the death world, or the material existence, the birth, rebirth, death world. They can come out of it. So that means that the only true calamity is this forgetfulness of Krishna. In fact, people, when I say people, especially saints, they set the best example. Their lives seem very, very difficult. If you read their biographies, they seem very difficult. But because of their awareness of God, they go through those difficulties with such skill and grace, and they don't become hateful or lose compassion. So that means that the only real problem is forgetfulness of Krishna. So Advaita Acharya was saying this, these entities, they're forgetful of Krishna, and due to that root dilemma, there's so much suffering. And unless Krishna himself comes to distribute that awareness of himself, then there is no one else in the world who will have the potency to remove this root problem, which is the forgetfulness of Krishna. So feeling compassion for the jivas and knowing Krishna to be the only person who can help remedy the problem, he began calling for Krishna very loudly to descend. And because of the loud cries of Advaita Acharya, one of the foremost of his devotees, in reciprocation with the cries of Advaita Acharya, he is descended. Kaviraj Goswami quotes a famous verse from the Bhagavad, Tam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita Hrit Saroja Ase Shrutekshitapata Nanunata Pumsam. Yayadiyata Urugaya Vibhavayanti Tat Tat Vapu Pranayase Saranugrahaya. This verse is saying, for those whose hearts have been infused with prema, Tam Bhakti Yoga Paribhavita, then the Lord Hrit Saroja, I say he comes to sit in the hearts of such devotees. How do they get that prema? Shruta Ikshitapata Nanunata Pungsam. Through the path of hearing from their gurus, the proper tattva, and then practicing what their guru has taught, and then ikshita, then they see the Supreme Lord. That is how this condition happens. Well, which form of the Lord do they see? Yayadiyata urugaya vibhavayanti, according to their absorption. Tat tat vapu. Then according to that, the Lord will manifest his form. Tat tat vapu. Pranayase, he will manifest that form which the devotee is absorbed in. Saranugrahaya, to show his mercy to that devotee. So Advaita Acharya was absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and that Krishna appeared in his golden form as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in response to the cries of Advaita Acharya. So these are the three external reasons for the Lord's appearance as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, as we mentioned, he wants to distribute the Krishna consciousness, but he cannot do that from the objective position, as the object of love. So he has to accept the subjective position of love, the one in whom love is residing, in order to have that sort of awareness by which it can potently perform the work of its distribution. I guess in some ways we can say that when Krishna comes in the objective position of love and the Dwapara Lila, that was the reason why he wasn't very effective in distributing Krishna consciousness, at least in his own estimation. He felt, I did not do a good job. Well, why didn't you do a good job? So in his own estimation, I didn't do a good job because I was doing it from the position of the object of love, so that I was not able to potently distribute this subjective awareness. So I have to myself become a devotee. And so he does that. He accepts the subjective experience of Sri Radha in order to be successful in doing so. So 3 internal reasons are here. Because of my time factor, I was just going to try to explain a little bit of these Mangocharan verses that I recited in the beginning of the class in order to unpack this a little bit. But I think I'm going to kind of gloss it here because of the time factor. And maybe if there's a little bit time after or during the questions and answers, we can maybe unpack a little bit more if people are here desiring that. But basically, the first thing we hear in the Mangocharan of Kaviraj Goswami, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Rasma. So Radha, Sri Radha, is Krishna Pranaya Vikriti. Radha is a transformation of Krishna's love. Hladini Shakti Rasma. She is the Hladini Shakti. So in the spiritual, as I hope many or most of you or all of you should be knowing, Krishna has 3 Shaktis: the internal energy, the soul energy, I don't know how to say, Jiva Shakti, the energy that manifests the souls, and then the energy that manifests the material called Maya Shakti. These are the 3 categories of his Shakti. He has unlimited Shaktis, but these are the 3 major categories. And that spiritual Shakti has 3, you can say, divisions to it, or 3 parts. One part is called the Sandhini part, which is the part of the internal energy that is, you can say, responsible for the manifestation of the spiritual reality, including the forms and the paraphernalia and the environment of the spiritual world. That is a manifestation of the Sandhini aspect of the spiritual reality. Then you have the Samvit part of the internal energy. The Samvit part is the part that is responsible for a cognition of spiritual reality. The forms of the spiritual, the environment, Krishna himself. Without the Samvit potency, you cannot have awareness of the spiritual reality. Just like us, we don't have awareness of the spiritual reality, right? Why we don't have awareness? Because we need assistance of the Samvit Shakti in order to get that awareness. It's just like if you walk into a room or like a pitch dark forest with a, what do you call it? Lighter. Then how much you will see with that little light? You will not see anything. So the little light of the Jiva, we have little light too, right? We're also conscious entities. But by our lights, we cannot see anything that is transcendent. We need the light. We need a superior light source that can give that revelation. So that superior light source that gives that cognition is called as the Samvit Shakti. And then you have the Hladini part. The Hladini part of the spiritual world is called as the pleasure-giving potency. So it is a part of the spiritual world that accounts for its bliss, right? What would be the point of having cognition of something that isn't blissful? Sidebar, I'm sorry, I shouldn't probably give this example, but I can't help it. I'm an American and I grew up with this, but there's this movie, The Matrix, which a lot of devotees like to reference because its creators did, in fact, it seems, use the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita to come up with some of the themes in that particular movie. In any case, the whole idea of the movie, and once The Matrix is basically Maya, And a lot of the theme of the movie is coming out of Maya and needing a guru to get you out of Maya, like Morpheus. There are a lot of really cool things that you can say about it. But one thing, I've loved using matrix examples for years because it's just so many nice correlations. But one area where it doesn't correlate very nicely is that after you get out of Maya or out of the matrix in the movie, the world that you're invited into is completely terrible. It's apocalyptic. It's controlled by machines, which is eerily, prophetic anyway, in any case. So, it's just like, oh, this is not a bluff. The food stuff that you have to eat is completely terrible. And so that's the part of the movie there's like a defect in terms of the spiritual philosophy that helped underpin some of the creation of that particular movie. The whole point of bringing that up is to say that what would be the use of an existence that isn't blissful, right? You can exist and not be conscious like our computers, but you can't be conscious without also existing. So consciousness is a higher category than just existence itself. And you can exist without being blissful, but you can't be blissful without also being conscious and existing, right? So bliss is like the pinnacle of what it means to exist. And what is the use of existing without happiness? In fact, that's what all jivas go for. Naturally, in the material world, they go for their own happiness. So what would be the meaning of attaining a spiritual world? How could it be called Purushartha? Purushartha Shiromani. The word Purushartha means the aim of human pursuit. And what is the aim of human pursuit? The aim of human pursuit is happiness, because it is the only thing that you will not exchange for something else, right? You work some job. Why do you work a job? So you can get something else, money. Well, why do you want money? So you can get something else, some of the material objects. Well, why do you want the material objects? So you can get something else. Namely, you're looking for happiness. No one can deny it. And that happiness is the only thing that you will not trade in for something else. Now, sometimes it may be seen that people so-called sacrifice their own happiness for like another, but that's because they think greater happiness is found in that sacrifice than just their own happiness. So that means that the purpose of human pursuit is definitely bliss. There's no doubt about it. And Purushartha Shiromani, the crest jewel of all Purusharthas, according to Gaudiya Vaishnavas, is this Krishna Prema. So that means that it must be blissful, because if it wasn't blissful, it cannot be the crest jewel of all Purushartha. So the part of the spiritual energy that makes things blissful is called as the Hladini Shakti. It is the part that gives bliss, gives that blissful experience and spirituality, and even a reflection of that Shakti is in the material world. And that's why we derive bliss from the material objects. So the essence of this Hladini Shakti is called as prema. You can think of it like, I don't know, think of it like a mango maybe. And the essence of the mango is its juice. Now, if you can imagine that juice had an essence, then the essence of that prema is known as bhava, because prema is just condensed bhava, right? And so if juice had an essence, then the essence, so mango, think of the mango as the Hladini Shakti, and the essence of the mango is prema, and the essence of prema is bhava. And the highest reach of this bhava is known as Mahabhava. And Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of that Mahabhava. She is the embodiment of that love. So she is one with Krishna, but because she is Krishna Shakti, right? Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti. She is a transformation of Krishna's love, the Hladini Shakti, right? So the Shakti cannot be different from the possessor of the Shakti, just as the scent cannot be separated from musk. This example is given by Kaviraj Goswami. Or the heat cannot be separated from fire. You don't have scent over here and the musk over here, or heat over here and the fire. They're always together, so they are one. So in the same way, Radha and Krishna are one in the same way or similar way, but they have taken on two forms. So we can't even really imagine this, but imagine if like you can have scent personified, and then musk personified. So they're actually one, but they have two different forms. That's inconceivable. Or if you can have heat takes on a personified form, and then fires over here. So they look separate, but they're actually one. So we cannot conceive of that. So that is what, Kaviraj Goswami is inviting us into this explanation here, or giving this explanation, that Radha and Krishna, Radha is the transformation of Krishna's Hladini Shakti. They are one because she is the Shakti and he's the Shaktiman, but they have taken two forms. And then when these two forms kind of again combine in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanyakyam Prakatamaduna Tadhvayam Chaikyamaptam. They again become a unity. But this is a very different sort of dynamic unity, because it's not like if you had scent and musk separate and then again they come together, and then it's just like the regular musk that we see. It would be a very different type of unity if they could take on two forms and then come together as two distinct forms, but sharing a unity. So these two forms again come together as a unity. That is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So my obeisances to that Krishna, Nomi Krishna Swarupam. My obeisances to Krishna Swarup. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is actually Krishna Swarup, but Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam. He's endowed with the luster and the bhava of Srimati Radharani. Radha Bhava. So Radha Bhava means the subjective experience of Srimati Radhika. Now embodying the highest extent, like I said, this love has four vessels. So although everyone experiences their love as the best, if judged in an impartial way, according to Kaviraj Goswami and Sri Rupa Goswami, then it is understood that the vessel of love that is characterized by amorous affection, that is the highest, and it even includes the other ones. And then there are many vessels of love within that category of amorous or lover type of love. And the highest of them all is Srimati Radharani. And so Krishna took the highest extent, the subjective experience of the highest extent of Krishna Prema. And only with access to her bhava and to her luster was he able to effectively distribute Krishna consciousness. So, okay. So why did he want her bhava? Was it just to distribute Krishna consciousness, as we've been hearing? No, it was born of Krishna's position as Rasika Shekhara. Rasika Shekhara means the connoisseur of rasas. So he's the object of love, and he's tasting all these different rasas, right? Servitude, ooh, that's good. The friendship, wow, amazing. He's tasting that Vatsalya love also. But when he tastes the amorous love, he's driven mad. And he becomes, and particularly when he tastes the amorous love as embodied in Srimati Radhika, he becomes mad. So he becomes, you can say in a sense, he's drawn into an existential dilemma, because he is literally the form of bliss itself. And yet when he tastes the love of Radha, he's driven mad by that. So that creates somewhat of an existential dilemma. How can someone who is bliss itself be taken aback by something that tastes even more wonderful in some ways than his own self-nature? So he becomes curious about that, or is driven into, an existential curiosity. He wants to do a PhD on love, basically. He wants to find out, what is this love? What does it mean to be the lover? I know what it means to be the beloved as the Vishaya Vigraha, but what does it mean to be the lover? And so in wanting to understand, there are many elements, psychological, like thinking elements, intellectual elements, identity elements, feeling elements. There's so many elements to being a lover. And he wants access to all those different subjective features of what it means to be a lover. And so this is his first internal reason. I want access to that subjective experience because it's a mystery to him and it mystifies him. It mystifies him, or it takes him aback, makes him mad, and it's a mystery. So he wants to unlock the different components of that type of love. I wish I had more time. I really don't. I'm kind of having to rush through, but yeah, there are different, anyway, you can understand by your own subjectivity, there's different components of what it means to be a lover of this particular type, right? So if you're a friend, that subjective experience of being a friend is, one thing, and it has elements in it that if you were just a servant of someone, they don't have access to that understanding. Similarly, the love of a parent for their child, that has subjective elements in it that a friend doesn't have access to subjectively. So similarly, the lover, there's so many elements of that love that a friend or a parent or a servant won't have access to. And so Mahaprabhu wants access to that subjective experience and all the different elements that ensue in that. That is the first internal reason. Second internal reason relates to Krishna's own qualities. So when you have a certain type of love, that love gives you access to elements of the beloved that won't be appreciable by others who don't share that same subjective experience. For example, if you're just like the boss of someone, that someone only knows you as the boss. So they don't have, they can only appreciate a certain extent of your qualities, right? So maybe they appreciate that you're a kind boss, that you pay them good. There are certain qualities of yours that they can appreciate, but there's a whole other spectrum of qualities that they can't have access to from their subjective experience of just being your servant at the workplace. So then your children, when you go home, your children have more access to your qualities. It will include some of the things that people see at work, but it also includes qualities that people at work don't see. Now you have those qualities at work, but the people at work can't appreciate that. Not that they can't, but they can't appreciate it from the position of just being like the employee. They can't appreciate the qualities that a child appreciates in you. All right. So the child has more access to the spectrum of your qualities. And then you have the parent, they have, let's say, even more aspect to the spectrum of your qualities. So according to the type of love you have for someone, to that degree, you have access to a whole realm of qualities that aren't accessible to other types of love. That's the best I can do with that. Just like this verse from Gita, what is night for common man is the time of awakening for the self-control. And the time of awakening for common man is night for the introspective sage. So I'm using this verse in a different way here. So what is night for the common man? Well, what is night for the common man are the qualities of Krishna. That is, they're asleep to those qualities of Krishna. They only awake to Maya Shakti, generally speaking. Then when you become a devotee, then you're awake to the qualities of Krishna. But according to the type of devotee you become, then to that degree, you are awake to the qualities of Krishna. So Krishna has unlimited qualities, but 64 are considered prominent in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And according to the type of devotee you have, you can appreciate so many combinations of those qualities. So one type of devotee can appreciate maybe up to 50, 58. Another devotee can appreciate up to 55. Let's say another devotee can appreciate up to 60. And then one type of devotee can appreciate all 64 qualities, for example. So everyone, whether you're a devotee or non-devotee, we're awake or asleep to the extent of Krishna's beauty to different degrees. Most of us in the material world are just sleeping hard on Krishna's qualities. So we can't see anything good in anything. And then when a general God conscious person is there, he can start to see, wow, Krishna is so wonderful. He's given us the air. He's given us fire. So he has access to that level of appreciation. But Krishna has so much more than just his position as giving us facility in the material world. There are so many other wonderful qualities. But only those who can enter into more internal states of awareness can access that. So the highest love, Mahabhav Sarup, right? The highest love will have access to the full spectrum, you can say, of Krishna's qualities. So the second reason relates to Krishna wanting to understand that full spectrum of qualities that exist in him, and by which he himself even becomes attracted. So there's a nice verse there about, anyway, I don't have time, but there's a nice verse that was quoted by Kaviraj Goswami from Lalita Madhava, where Krishna's in Dwarka and he catches a reflection of himself and he's just like enraptured by that. And then he gets a desire at that time to be able to appreciate his reflection, but from the position of Srimati Radharani, who has the full access to the spectrum of the qualities in him. So this is the second internal reason. So first is to just embody the subjective experience of Radha, basically, and all the elements that come with that subjective experience. The second reason is to be able to have access to the extent of beauty that exists in himself that only her love has access to. And then the third reason comes that there's a happiness that is concomitant with the unlocking of access to those qualities. Just like, again, sorry for the mundane examples. I'm a Westerner, just please forgive me. But when I was a young boy, and we would play the video games, and in playing the video games, I used to be really into like the fighting video games. Naturally, I'm a guy. Their violence is there, and then they used to have like all these unlocked characters, and you had to like beat the game and figure out various codes to unlock these unlocked characters. And when you unlocked the characters, you felt very like you achieved something very great, and you became very happy with having access to the unlocked characters. Of course, like everything material has diminishing returns. So there's a certain, so allow me that very mundane example. When one is able to unlock the extent of beauty that is in Krishna, then there's a certain happiness that is concomitant with the discovery of such beauty. And again, that exists on a spectrum. So for even when let's say a person goes from the position of being an atheist to a devotee, right? There's something that they're unlocking in the beauty of even the concept of God. What to speak of the experience of God, even the concept of God, they unlock some beauty in that. And in unlocking the beauty of just the conception, they start to experience happiness. And if they can just continue to move forward, they start to unlock greater extent of the beauty of God. And along with that greater discovery is greater bliss. So the third reason relates to the bliss that follows the discovery of his own qualities that only Srimati Radharani has access to. So that is a third of the internal reasons for why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. So the first one, to embody the subjective experience and have access to that subjective world. Two, to have access to his own qualities that only such a subjective world can unlock and discover. And then to experience the happiness of the discovery of his own qualities in the subjective world of Srimati Radharani. Hari Om Tat Sat. That's my presentation. I did the best I could. It was a gloss. There are a lot of missing points, but that's the best I could do. I hope it was okay. Thank you all very much.
Jagannath Prabhu, you can take some more time if I could see that you ran out of time. So we will be very happy to hear if you would like to continue for some more time.
Yeah, I've touched all the major bases. They're just not fully painted. The canvas is up, the basic image is there, but it's just not filled in very detailed way. I think I can invite questions if anyone wants to ask something that might bring out some more discussion around some of these elements we just touched. I would really appreciate that. That would help a lot to unpack. Otherwise, the canvas is there. I think I did a decent job in explaining the three reasons, external and internal, to give people a sense of what that is. And you can study it for yourself deeply. And chapter 3 and 4 of the Adi Leela, you can get if you really want to dive deep into that. But I think my presentation can help give a clarity that you may not catch reading it by yourself. I certainly didn't catch it. I have to say the reason I chose this subject matter, I was telling Mother Premananda in the beginning that one sannyasi kind of guide of mine, he asked me one day, he said, can you clearly describe the 3 internal reasons why Mahaprabhu appeared? This was like a couple of years ago. And I started laughing and I said, no. And he started laughing. He said, me neither. And he's like, all the points sound exactly the same. I was like, yeah, I know. I can't really make out the distinction between them. But so that's why I took up the challenge of trying to describe the internal reasons today. And in fact, I'll be completely honest that it wasn't until last night I was talking to my friends here where I'm at in Hudson, New York, and I said one sentence, which basically became my presentation today. And I laughed at them and said, this is the first time that it's kind of manifested in my head in a more clear way. And so I spent an hour and a half last night and a few hours this morning studying chapter 4 to see if my sentence was indeed, accurate, and to kind of fill it out. So this is the first time I've been able to describe the internal reasons in a way that felt authentic and aligned and satisfactory. So I'm actually quite happy with my presentation, to be honest.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. It's a very thoughtful presentation as always when you speak. And I will open this up for discussion. Just one thought came to my mind hearing you speak on this topic, that one of the internal reasons being Krishna's unlimited desire to access those aspects of Srimati Radharani, which is not that, it's not so very obvious, but Krishna is always wanting to experience something newer and newer, and who else from where Krishna can experience that. And so our own devotional life also, effectively such a small living, tiny living entities, and our own experience of the process of bhakti, which unlocks different time periods in our lifetime. We see some similarity in this because whatever it is in his aspect as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, how he experiences what Srimati Radharani is. There is some kind of do you see some little, we are nothing like Krishna, but still in our process of bhakti, there is this unlocking of elements of it, which depends on one's, the mercy that is coming from the Lord and his representatives and one's spiritual master. And there is a slight similarity in the process, and all the living entities also want to experience something more and more in this practice of bhakti. I was just thinking what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, if I understood everything right, and I don't know if I did, my mind was going to the verse Bhakti Paresha Nubhava Virakte Anyata Chaishotrika Ekakala Prapadyama Nasha Yatashna Tashus Tushti Pushti Suragayo Nugahasam. And this verse is saying that three things develop simultaneously for those who are advancing on the path of bhakti. What are the three things? Number one, bhakti. Number two, paresha anubhava, which means experience of God. And number three, detachment. So these three things develop simultaneously in the same way that a person who's engaged in the process of eating develops nourishment, gets satisfaction, and freedom from hunger. Our acharyas comment that if you take a little bit of grain, then you get a little bit of nourishment, satisfaction, and freedom from hunger. But if you take full plate, then you get full nourishment, full satisfaction, and complete freedom from hunger. So in the same way, if we do bhakti a little bit, you get a little bit of these things, little devotion, little experience of God, little detachment. But if you take bhakti to its highest limit, then full satisfaction, or full devotion, full experience of God, and complete detachment from matter, even on an extreme level that's inconceivable and hard to even imagine. So my mind kind of went to that particular verse. So how far does one want to take it? Or I was also reminded of another verse. Yata yata atma pramikite so ma punya ghata shavana bidhanai Tata tata pashyati vastu shukshman chakshur yata vanjana samprayuktam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, to the degree, yata yata, to the degree, atma paramigate, so to the degree one's self is purified by what? Mat punya ghata shavana bidhanai. By the sadhana of hearing and chanting Krishna's pious narrations, then tata, to that degree, pashyati, you can see the vastu. The vastu means the truly abiding substance, that is Sri Krishna. Shukshman, which is very subtle, very hard to see. So if you want to see it, it depends on to what degree you want to take this, how far you want to go, how deep you want to dive. Then to that degree, you can pashyati vastu shukshman, you can have the perception of such beauty is there. When you have the perception of the beauty, you will not be attracted to pale material things, as Prabhupada talks about in the higher taste verse. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasi dehina rasarajana sopyasa param drishtana vartate. As he's mentioned in the verse, if you have the param drishta, if you're seeing the beauty of Krishna, and I in fact think Prabhupada uses that language in his purport, for anyone who's tasting the beauty of Krishna, then they will no longer have taste or attraction for dead and pale material things. And so it is saying when in Mahaprabhu Leela, after he meets his guru, Ishwar Puri, and Jaya, he immediately kind of begins to embody the Mahabhava Srimati Radharani. And when he came back, his detachment was so visible that it completely frightened Mother Shachi. So he got the Varakti, he got the Paresha Anubhava, the experience of the object of love from the position of the subject of love. And that experience was called Bhakti, specifically that Mahabhav type. And yeah, after that, he launched the Krishna consciousness movement and started taking to the streets, performing Nam Sankirtan. So yeah, my mind went to these two verses as I was hearing you speak. I hope that encapsulated what I thought I heard from you. I hope it's okay.
Yes.
Mother Premananda, can I ask a question?
Yes, I was just going to open it up for others, and please go ahead. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. We can't hear you.
Very well. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you for this really brilliant overview. My question is this. When we look at Mahaprabhu's Leela, we see that he gave a very systematic process of dissemination of Krishna consciousness, right? Instructing the Goswamis to write literatures, telling Srila Haridas Thakur to go door to door and ask people to chant Hare Krishna, and the South Indian Brahmin telling him to read Bhagavad Gita and preach. At the same time, we hear in our family often this assertion that if you want to approach Radha and Krishna and Kali Yuga, if you want to get that Braj Prem, you can only go through Mahaprabhu. And sometimes I have a difficulty balancing those two perspectives, because it seems like Mahaprabhu was given the process, chanting Hare Krishna, and the kind of activities that we're supposed to perform, like hearing Bhagavatam and associating with devotees. Then we constantly hear this refrain that, you can only approach Radha Krishna or get that Braj Prem in Kali Yuga through Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And it almost sounds a bit Christian-y, like, when the Christians say, like, you can only approach God through Jesus. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, what exactly does that mean? Isn't enough that Mahaprabhu gave the process and anybody who follows the process gets, Radha Krishna and Braj Prem? What does it mean that you can only get it through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
I have no idea. I would have to ask those devotees what they mean. Yeah, the thing about language is that most of us don't speak precisely when we speak. So this is why there's so much need for clarification, right? Because our speech is very imprecise and like generic. Just because if you have to speak precisely every sentence, your speech will never get over practically. So you have to like speak precisely, and then questions have to invite deeper, clarification of that. I think there's a word for this that I've recently encountered. Yeah, taxonomic, which means like it's like concerned with like classification of things, language or organisms, and so we don't speak taxonomically because it just would be really weird. And so when people make a statement like you have to go through Mahaprabhu, you just have to ask like, okay, what precisely do you mean by that? Because I don't know what people mean by that when they say that. For me, to hear that means, you know, Sri Chaitanya Shiksha. That's what it means. And his Shiksha is coming through Guru Parampara, the teachings of the Goswamis and our other Purva Acharyas. So going through following bhakti as they've given instructions is, for me, that means following Mahaprabhu. In fact, when you look at Kaviraj Goswami's explanation of the second verse of his Mangalacharan, where he compares Mahaprabhu and Nityananda to the sun and moon that has arisen simultaneously, then he says the sun or moon, it removes darkness and it allows you to see objects, right? So the sun of Mahaprabhu removes the darkness of Kaitava Dharma, a cheating Dharma, which basically means anything that's not Shuddha Bhakti is cheating Dharma for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And it allows you to see two things. What two things? Srimad Bhagavatam and the devotee who is the vessel of love. So by the mercy of Mahaprabhu's, by the mercy of the son of Mahaprabhu, you can see these two things. First of all, the cheating Dharma in us starts to get evaporated. And we start to actually appreciate the idea of being displaced from the center of our own consciousness, which is otherwise horrific sounding. And no one would be agreeable to that. But actually, you hear from Mahaprabhu's mercy, you start to like get on board, like, yeah, actually, let me be displaced from the center of my own consciousness and let Krishna be the center. And then after that, Mahaprabhu gets the vision of the sadhu, the book Bhagavata, and the person Bhagavat. And through them, this Krishna consciousness can be, the ingress of Krishna consciousness can come. So that is deliberately said by Kaviraj Goswami at the very beginning explanation of his Mangalacharan. So for me, that sounds like going through Mahaprabhu. So I don't know what else they mean when someone else says that. So you would have to ask.
Got it. Thank you. I was also referring not just to like contemporary devotees, but even when you read the prayers of Srila Prabhupada Saraswati, for instance, there's often this sort of emphasis on how one can only approach Radha and Krishna.
Yeah, I thought you may be thinking of that verse. If you go to Mahaprabhu through Dasa Bhakti, then it arises in Braja or Radha Bhav and all that. Still the same thing is there, because to go through Mahaprabhu or to go through the Goswamis means what? They're giving us access to their subjective discoveries, right? Before the Goswamis, these sort of secrets about Krishna consciousness were not known to anybody. So that means that they're giving us access. They're giving us access to a subjective world we would have otherwise had no access to. So if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, or you hear about Mahaprabhu's Leela, or you read the books of those who were gifted the responsibility of codifying Mahaprabhu's teachings and his sort of giving us a sense of his subjective world by telling his story, then your consciousness will go directly to Krishna. Anyone who reads Chaitanya Charitamrita, how could they not be Krishna conscious after that? Mahaprabhu is lost in Krishna Prema, everything Krishna, Krishna. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam. He is the form that is always Krishna, Krishna. On his tongue, the word Krishna, Krishna is always to be found. So how can your consciousness go to any other place but Krishna if you're approaching Mahaprabhu or his followers? So yeah, that is the sense that I get from that.
Thank you. And the last thing, what was that statement you said that you said last night and you were, that became the crux of your presentation? What was the statement?
The statement was that the three reasons for Mahaprabhu's appearance was to embody the subjective experience of love, so that he would have access to the qualities in him that only such love gives access to, and to awaken the happiness of accessing those qualities. And it came as like an inspiration. I just said it like very spontaneously, and I was like, yo, let me go write that down real quick. So I ran into the room and took note of it, and then I started reading CC. I was trying to go to bed early so I could wake up early, but I ended up going to sleep at like 10:30. Then I woke up at like 4 o'clock because my mind was just like, it was just going. And I had to get up. I chanted my rounds. And then I again was looking at it more carefully this morning. So yeah, I felt it kind of like an inspiration because I never sat with the topic very long in the past because it just seemed inaccessible. So I was feeling that I got a little inspiration this year. Krishna's mercy, Gaura's mercy. That was my little sentence there.
Thank you.
Jai Ho. There's a Ashish Yadav says, Hare Krishna. It's interesting to hear that Krishna also wants to see his beauty and qualities that exist in him from perspective of others. Does that show his human qualities, or we have that quality as we are part and parcel of him? I think the answer is yes to both these questions. It would be great if you can comment on it. So yeah, Krishna is the original human. We are not the original human. So that's why a lot of these atheistic philosophers, especially, they have problems with us thinking Krishna is human because they say we have, this is anthropomorphism, that we are imposing our own humanity onto divinity and thinking it's human. But actually, we don't know all humans because we're finite. So it's impossible for us to know all humans. And unless you know all humans, how can you make a statement that we're making divinity human because we're human? We only know our humanity, and certainly Krishna is not like us humans. So when we deny Krishna humanity, we're denying him the humanity that is like us, which is faulty and nonsense and frail and feeble. Yes, he's not a human like that, but he's the original human. So it is actually our own egocentrism, our taking our own humanity as central, that prevents us from appreciating the humanness of the original human, that is Sri Bhagavan. And part of that original humanity are, because this original humanity that is Krishna is inherently beautiful. It is not like our humanity where we got to work a little bit hard to bring out the beauty. But his humanity, everything there is inherently wonderful. It's composed of bliss. So his beauty being inherently beautiful, it is natural that he will be attracted to it, right? Because we're attracted to beautiful things. That is also natural. So the beauty is inherent, and the attraction to beauty, that is natural. So that Krishna will be attracted to his own self, who is inherently beautiful, is not at all surprising. So he is also attracted. And you can say, because we are part and parcel of him, at least Prabhupada write like this in many places, that we also have a similar psychology, that we are attracted to beauty. And even if there's beauty in ourselves, we get attracted to that also, right? Like if you can play some instrument very nice, or you're very intelligent, so you'll get attracted to that. You may like to hear how you play, how you speak, how you explain things. You may get attracted to that because it is natural to be attracted to beauty. And Prabhupada said because that psychological disposition exists in divinity. So it occurs here also in the replicas of the original prototype, so to say. And so, I think the answer to your questions is a yes and a yes. He's definitely human, and he's definitely attracted. And we have that sense because of our being part and parcel of that reality. That's the best I could do. I hope it's all right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Jagannath Pranam, Panduranga. Prabhu, quick question. You gave 3 internal reasons and external reasons. Wonderful to hear those. One question comes to my mind is, Krishna, I think probably you addressed it. I did not catch the essence of it. So trying to understand again, being Krishna, Atmaram, that you don't need anything other than himself to experience, enjoy, anything you name it. External isn't understandable because it is not for him, for others. He wants to do all kinds of good for others, telling him latest communities, all those things. So what was the reason, being an Atmaram, to experience himself again through expansions of him, like Srimati Radharani is one of the expansions of him, internal energy.
Yes.
How do we understand that, Prabhuji? It's very...
I don't think we do, but the explanation that comes is because Radha is not different from himself, right? So when we talk about a person being Atmarama, that means they are finding the happiness in their own self and not in something that is outside of themselves. So in the material world, we are Anatmarama because we are unaware of our own self and of God. And so in that state of unawareness, we keep running after the external things, trying to fill the emptiness that follows the lack of awareness of our own self and God. So that's why Arjuna is asking in chapter 2, how does the self-realized person sit? Which he means, how does he not run after the external things? It's very difficult to do, as we probably have visceral experience on a daily basis. And well, then the answer comes is because he's Atmarama. He's experiencing the happiness in his own self. So Krishna is Atmarama. He's experiencing happiness in his own self. And the gopis of Braj, Srimati Radharani, they're not different from him. They don't exist outside of Krishna. Just as the fire cannot exist outside of the heat cannot exist outside of the fire, so to speak. Outside means separate from the fire. So that's why I guess Kaviraj Goswami is making the statement that Radha is Krishna Pranaya Vikriti, is Krishna's own Hadini Shakti, and Ekatmanava Pibhuvipura, Deha Bedam Gatoto, that they are actually one. Ekatmanava means they are one. They are not two. So if they are one, then Krishna is not enjoying anything outside of himself. So his status as Atmarama remains intact. So if you study Ras Lila section of Bhagavatam, also this is coming up, where the question comes out, how is he's Atmarama and Aptakama, so how is it he's enjoying Rasa Lila? So then the answer is coming. It is just like, I forget how it's explained actually, to be honest. I'm going to take this next statement with a slight grain of salt. You're going to have to go read up on it in chapter 33 of the 10th canto. But the answer is coming that they're like the reflections of Krishna. So it's not, the gopis are like Krishna's reflection. So like if you're looking at yourself in the mirror, for example, and you say, you're enjoying that reflection, then you're enjoying your own self only. You're not enjoying something outside of yourself. So they're like the reflection of Krishna. I have to anyway, I'm not fully satisfied with that. I am satisfied with the answer, but not fully because I can't think of the precise shloka. So that disturbs my psyche when I can't think of the precise shloka for things. So they're like the reflection. So he's not enjoying anything outside of himself. So his position as Aptakama remains intact. That is basically the explanation that will be coming.
Yeah, Prabhu, I think I got what you explained.
I'll look it up.
So I think what you're saying is because Krishna is enjoying his own expansions, it's not something different from him.
Yes.
So in that sense, he's Atmaram, like, Radharani is his own. He can just recall any time and put back in his, I'm just putting like, technical terms. Or he can bring anything out of his body and enjoy that. So because it is not separate from him, he was considered Atmaram. So yes. I think I got convinced on that. But then at the same time, the words Atmaram versus Atmaram Samanayo. So people like me, or whoever it is, elevated devotee, how can they be Atmarams? Because only Krishna be Atmaram. Nobody else can be Atmarams. Yes. How can we make a statement that anybody who's Atmaram can become? Because they will never be able to expand to themselves and enjoy in that fashion.
So Atmarama then refers, when referring to the jivas, means something different than when it's referring to Krishna. So that's, they're categorically they're in two different categories. So the word has different meaning in those different contexts. Just like the word two in English, you have to listen carefully to the context in order to understand which two is being talked about, right? There's me too, and there's the two of us.
Correct.
And so you have to be sensitive to the context to get the sense. So if the word Atmarama is being used in the context of a jiva, it basically, in short, means that he's deriving happiness from the internal energy to various degrees. So because of that happiness from the spiritual energy, then he doesn't have to run outside. That is all it means there in that context, right? When you're getting the happiness of the inner world from the internal energy, then you don't have to run for the external energy. That's the simple meaning there. And to the degree we are not connected to the internal energy, to that degree we have to run after the external energy. So that would be the context there in the case of the individual souls who are said to be Atmarama.
Wonderful, bro. Thank you. Thanks for the explanation. Really appreciate that.
I found the thing I was thinking of. Well, yeah, this was the paragraph I was thinking of. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, all the gopis are expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. Another very important verse that was quoted in chapter 4 that we just had zero time to talk about. Touching their bodies with his hands and looking at their pleasing eyes, Krishna enjoyed the gopis exactly as a child enjoys playing with the reflection of his body in a mirror. When Krishna touched the different parts of their bodies, the gopis felt surcharged with spiritual energy. They could not adjust their loosened clothes, although they tried to keep them adjusted properly. Their hair and garments became scattered and their ornaments loosened, and they forgot themselves in the company of Krishna. So yeah, that particularly that sentence, Krishna enjoyed the gopis exactly as a child enjoys playing with the reflection of his body in a mirror. So that is how the explanation is coming why he remains Atmarama. So very interesting. And your original question is how we can understand that. And my first reply to that was that I don't think that we can, but here's the explanation.
A lot of things we can't.
Yes, we are finite jivas, so this is all quite inconceivable. But this is the revelation that comes. It's very interesting.
So understanding that limitation, is that something we should not pursue, that to try to understand Prabhu? Because I know we cannot understand. We know that it is not possible. Then why we are striving for that? Is it not prayasa?
No, there will always be prayasa. So there should be prayasa for the right thing, right? So you probably also do prayasa. You work some job, probably too many hours in the week. That is also prayasa. It is unavoidable. There has to be some prayasa. So you just do prayasa for the right thing. So what is the right thing? Well, the right thing would be that the right thing will depend on the world of faith that you inhabit. Correct. And the world of faith that we inhabit is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So the right thing is prema. And we're advised by our shastras like Srimad Bhagavatam to go for that. Etavadeva jignasam, tattva jignasanatmanaha. That we are advised to endeavor up to the point of the experience of prema. Etavadeva jignasam. Tattva jignasana atmana. We need the help of Guru to do that. So we're advised to accept that prayasa. We said, but it is all very high. Yeah, no doubt. But that is the advice that has been given to us. That is the mission that has been assigned.
Yes.
So you will have to accept some mission. Now we have the missions that are given by saintly devotees for our own welfare and happiness. And if we don't like those, then there's the default missions given by Maya. All right, go and run after matter. Yes, sir. We invite suffering in our life. So some prayasa will be there, some mission you have to accept. So we accept the impossible mission of conquering the heart of Krishna. Even in failing in that mission, there is no loss. Nehabi kamana shosti pratyavaya navidite swapamana piyastu dharmasya tarete marato bhaya. There is no loss, there is no diminution, and there is no fear in that. So who would not accept such a mission like that? And all other missions you'll accept in the folly of chasing after matter, there will be failure inevitably. There will be diminution after you get the thing. You're like, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. That is the most fun about getting your desires fulfilled, is saying that it's not what it was in your head. And it is full of the fear because it's here today and gone tomorrow. So that is the mission of Maya that we always be taking on a daily basis. So we take another mission, the mission of conquering the heart of Krishna. And in that mission, there is no diminution, there is no fear, and there is no loss. So who would not take such a chance? Yes, we may fail at it. So what? Even in our failure, there is success. That is the purpose of this verse from Gita 240. There's only really degrees of success. All right, I didn't conquer this life. Next life, I will conquer.
Never-ending journey.
Okay.
Thank you, bro.
Hari. Mother Gail shares a nice statement here. Aim for the stars and you might reach the sky. Beautiful. Okay, so it's 9:30. I don't want to keep you from other wonderful kathas today. Thank you so much for being my guardian angel for this last hour and a half and giving me the opportunity to give voice to a sort of revelation that's kind of only fresh in my head. I was very nervous that I wouldn't be able to articulate it well enough, but I did a decent job, and I think that was due to your kindness and blessings upon me in the beginning. So I thank you all so much. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. Thank you so much for giving the class for the Naperville congregation. And, I'm requesting you to periodically come and do this for us. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
And also on this occasion, I just wanted to inform you that we are, our temple construction is beginning on Ram Navami Day, April 21st, and welcoming you here for that function, as well as on May 15th, we are having a more broader program. If you are in town or if you are planning to come this way, please come. And also, inviting you for future classes and everything here in Naperville. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.